Hi. My plan for the weekend is to do a lot of reading. Weather is going to be meh, so I'm thinking weekend reading vlog. Last night I started Angel Down. We're off to a great start. I had never heard of this until I checked the winner of the Pulitzer Prize. Immediately just seeing it was a novel set during World War I, following soldiers who have to cross no man's land, and that there seemed to be an element of magical realism, that it would really get to like the heart of the struggle, the internal psychological, emotional struggle of these young men at war. Sold. Before actually being able to get my hands on a copy, I heard people talking about the book, and the way it's written, that there's no periods. It's the whole book is like one sentence. However, it's broken up into paragraphs and broken up into chapters. It's a little stream of conscious. It's, not quite postmodern. It's got, its head up its own ass, that kind of like, who does this guy think he is writing this book in this way? Why? So that scared me. I'm not gonna lie. I had just recently read Tomb of Sand, which is very postmodern, stream of conscious, surreal, experimental. And I didn't love that. There were like things I could pick out that I'm like, I could have really enjoyed this, but ultimately the style of that book overshadowed the story, message, whatever. So I was worried about Angel Down. Reading the first chapter online, I was like, oh, I don't mind this at all. In fact, it actually reads like a poem. See, the paragraphs, like it's broken into paragraphs, I'm more inclined to call them stanzas. Like, I think this is just, it has a very poetic rhythm, and I'm fine with it. And so I didn't quite read the entire first chapter. I think I immediately knew that no, this book is for me. So last night when I get to the last stanza of the first chapter, it acknowledges the structure of the book, of the style it's written in. So like I said, we're with some young men, soldiers in the trenches. There's just been a barrage of some sort, and now there is a sound, a shriek that they hear. It's someone dying in no man's land, someone injured but left out there, unreachable. So the last stanza says, and Bagger, the main character, already weighed down in mud and blood, further heavies in the dreary certainty that the shriek won't ever end, just like the war won't ever end, like the carnage won't ever end. It's a sentence in a book careening without periods, gasping with too many commas, a sentence that once begun can never be stopped, a sentence doomed to loop back on itself to form a terrible black wheel that sooner or later will drag each and every person to their grave. So all of that, just like the rest of the book, no periods, only commas. There is dialogue, and within the dialogue, there's a more proper grammatical structure. There are periods and question marks and like more definable sentences within dialogue. But for the most part, the story flows, and I'm loving it. And this morning, it made me cry. every dog-eared page is a page that is out of order, and it's just isolated to this one section of the book. So I don't really know what to do about it. Okay, my phone is low on battery, but that's probably a good thing because it'll force me to be brief. I finished Angel Down last night, like 2 a.m, but I didn't want to go to bed without it finished. At one point I was struggling because I was starting to my eyes were getting heavy. They're incredibly heavy now as a result of staying up till 2 a.m. But yeah, my eyes were getting heavy while reading. And I had showed you earlier that this is how the paragraphs are broken up throughout most of the book. Towards the very end though, it is just solid pages of text. And that's what I'm hitting as I'm fighting to stay awake. Just solid pages of text. And I started getting a little bit lost, what are we doing? All this time, I have enjoyed the writing style. I felt that it has been unique without getting too full of itself, without being too pretentious or yeah, I don't know how to describe it. It felt very accessible. In those parts, I was like, oh no, I think he's losing me. But then all of a sudden, switch positions, fluff the pillows, sit up, okay, we could do this. All of a sudden I realized oh, I see what he's doing here. And it blew my mind. And so we're talking we are at this point of the very end. Blew my mind. Oh, so good. So good. So I've kind of given you briefly what this is about. There is a ragtag group of 5 soldiers chosen to go on basically a suicide mission. And they are chosen because they're expendable. No one likes them. They offer very little. They are chosen to venture into no man's land to euthanize a wounded comrade because we hear this shriek, this scream that's driving everybody crazy. And it really reminded me, there is a scene in All Quiet on the Western Front that goes over the same thing. You hear someone dying and knowing you can't get to them, it drives the other soldiers insane from the safety of the trenches. So that's the setup here, is they're going over the top to take care of this wounded soldier who is just screaming. It's shrieking. There's a shrieking, and that becomes a motif that the way that sound is described throughout, because eventually different people also take on the role of the shrieker. So yeah, and when they get there, and it's right on the back, okay? What they find amid the ruined battlefield, however, is not a man in need of mercy, but a fallen angel, seemingly struck down by artillery fire. From there, now we get this group very immediately realizes what she is. It is. And everyone has different ideas of what to do about the situation of having an angel in their possession. I will say, even having read the back and knowing that that's what this book was going to be about, there was going to be an angel they discover, I was kind of surprised by the form she took and by the way she was introduced to the novel. I'm going to keep saying she. I'm pretty sure for the entirety the angel is referred to as she. Yeah, that's how she's perceived by each of the soldiers. But anyway, reading the description of the book, so before going in and getting to the point where they find this angel, I just thought it would go differently. I imagined that the fallen soldier would be an angel himself. You know what I mean? Like kind of like an angel among men kind of thing. That like the whole time he has been the soldier and he's the one wounded, and now they have to rescue, like a Saving Private Ryan kind of like mission, that they're rescuing the soldier, and the soldier is important because they're an angel. But that was just, I don't know why I thought that would be how it goes. That was not it at all. They find the Shrieker, and it is a fallen angel, and it's how did they fall? What does this mean? What do we do with this? And then also the personalities of each character is revealed. And like I said, they've been chosen for this mission in the first place because they're not the ideal soldier. They are not characters that you see in a completely positive light. Even the main character, Cyril Bagger, it's told in third person, but he is our main character, and we get a lot of his internal thoughts and emotions and reactions and his personal history. And it's very honest about the fact that, you know, he's a hustler, he's a swindler, he is a trickster. He knows how to get out of things, how to manipulate people to always come out on top. And then we kind of start seeing like a fuller picture of where that comes from, what his morality is. I think I was most impressed with the way this kind of transcends being a historical novel set during a specific war. You know, we've got these elements of magical realism or surrealism, or whatever you want to call it, with the presence of the angel and miracles or unexplainable things happening. And, you know, that part that really, you know, took my breath away towards the end, it transcends this historical fiction type story, and it really becomes a look at, you know, humanity as a whole. And I think as I was reading it, and coming to this realization of what the book is doing here at the end, it also made me come to the realization of what's going on with me, like why I'm obsessed with these stories in the first place. And I'll give you, you know, one little paraphrase, is that the character comes to the realization that this war, the Great War, known as, you know, called at the time the war to end all wars, this is the war to start all wars. From an American perspective, like America's getting involved, and like how that shifted things politically, but then just globally, and then just the psychological and emotion implications of like what happened to these soldiers. I feel like, yeah, the book really pegged what it is about war literature, specifically World War I, that has caught my attention. So 5 stars. This book absolutely got 5 stars. I showed you a clip earlier, so like right here. So I'm guessing it's like a single signature that kind of got all messed up. These pages are all out of order. That drove me a little bit crazy, because it took me a minute to realize what had even happened because of the unique style and unfolding of the story. You know, the continuous, I'm not even going to call it a sentence. It doesn't feel like a sentence. And, you know, all the story being broken in commas. I didn't realize that we had skipped to something else, that the page skipped, and I was reading something that should have come before. It felt clunky, and I was confused, and I was like, oh, I guess I just didn't get that. And then realized that, oh, these pages are out of order. And then a few pages later, another couple pages are out of order. And it happens 4 times, which is super annoying. But as you could see, I was sticking sticky notes in. I underlined the heck out of this book. And then I didn't want to stop. So as I got to here, I was like, well, do I go back to Barnes & Noble now and be like, hey, give me another book? Do I contact the publisher like, hey,
you're going to send me another book, because my guess is that whatever copies are at Barnes & Noble are all going to have the same problem, because it's not unique to me. I did find other people online who encountered the same issue. I'm wondering if this got rushed because of the Pulitzer win. I know they moved up the release date of the paperback. This doesn't have the Pulitzer seal on it, so I'm wondering if those printings will have the issue fixed. So like, yeah, I could see where Barnes & Noble would exchange the book for me, but now I don't want to give this one up, because I would want to transfer, not that I took notes, but like I underlined so much. It was hard for me not to underline the entire freaking book. So I think I'm just gonna like eat it and be like, I made it through the end. I marked which pages the issue arises on. I don't see anyone else in my household reading this. They all know, because I vented to them as I was reading. I like my husband and the kids were playing a hockey game on the PlayStation, and I'm like, look at this, look what happened. And my husband at least was like, that seems awful, I would be really annoyed. Thank you, I am super annoyed. But he's not gonna read this book. This is mine. So I think I'm okay just keeping it as it is. I know the issues with it, but my experience is documented in these pages. My reactions. There is a slight color coding to my tabs. Reds are like the I see you, like the not moralizing, but the like deductions. Like, here's the takeaway, the big like I'm reading you kind of moments. Yellows are started as being like, oh, we're going to address structure. So also like symbolism. There's a couple orange tabs, and those were like big moments, like crucial moments. Greens, I forget what greens were. Oh, greens were like the like, okay, this is what we're going with. Green for go. This is moving the plot forward. Oranges were like reveal moments. Blue is where I cried. Okay, so let me show you now a couple other books that I've acquired fairly recently, that all have World War I as the subject. The Sojourn by Andrew Krivak. Oh, here it is. Uprooted from a 19th century mining town in Colorado by a shocking family tragedy, young Joseph Vinich returns with his father to an impoverished shepherd's life in rural Austria-Hungary. When war comes, Joseph is sent as a sharpshooter to the southern front, where he must survive the killing trenches, the perilous trek across the frozen Italian Alps, and capture by a victorious enemy. Strikingly contemporary, though replete with evocative historical detail, The Sojourn will join the ranks as one of the great classic fiction of World War I. In Memoriam by Alice Wynne. It's 1914 and World War I is turning through young men on both sides of the fight. I believe this also becomes a love story. I don't want to read too much more. I had heard of this, and then Kayla, Books and Lala, this was in one of her reading blogs for like books that will make you cry. And I immediately ordered it after watching her video. A separate piece, nope, World War II. So that can go in a different pile altogether. And The Absolutist by John Boyne. This is September 1919. 21-year-old Tristan Sadler takes a train from London to Norwich to deliver a package of letters to the sister of Will Bancroft, the man he fought alongside during the Great War. Skipping some of the synopsis. The Absolutist is an unforgettable and masterful tale of passion, jealousy, heroism, and betrayal set in the gruesome trenches of World War I. So again, just skimming enough. This was on a list of great war novels. So I found it at my local used bookstore. I also have a couple books on my e-reader. So that would be The Good Soldier Schweik, which I believe is the inspiration for Catch 22. Or, yeah. Riding in the Zone Rouge, which is a nonfiction. Then Zone Rouge, which is a novel. At Night, All Blood is Black. And then finally, The Remembered Soldier, which I am like 60% of the way through since I started it last August. I just haven't read it in a few months. Last thoughts on Angel Down before I wrap up this reading vlog for the long weekend, which, side note, I kind of forgot it was a long weekend going in. But then my husband was like, hey, it's Memorial Day. I don't have to go to work. Yay. Which was really helpful. He took the dog to the vet for me because the staying up till 2 a.m. reading was made for a rough morning. So he took care of the dog's vet appointment. Everything's fine. Just some vaccines. But yeah, it seemed pretty fitting to have read an emotional, This Is the Price of War novel over Memorial Day weekend. So, final thoughts. Do not let the one sentence thing intimidate you or deter you from picking this up. Because as you go, you really get caught up in the story. And because there are commas, you just naturally find the rhythm of the book. So the one sentence thing is not a big deal. Also, the book addressing it right in the beginning helps you see how worth it is for that structure to exist within the story. And towards the end again, it kind of brings back up this idea of a never-ending sentence, the war going on and on and on. This book is graphic and violent, and I feel like you can expect that given the subject. But if you are sensitive to it, it can be intense. It's not pointless. Like, it suits the storytelling style, the subject, the atmosphere, the weight of what's happening. Like, the violence fits. There's also some like sexual language that's, it doesn't not fit into the story. That was maybe just not as necessary. So if violent description, graphic imagery, if that bothers you, be aware that it's in here. I still think the book is worth at least trying, attempting. If not this, 100% read All Quiet on the Western Front, which also contains violence and descriptions of the injuries and horrors of war. That one is maybe a little more gentle than this one's a little bit in your face about it. But that was the point. So yeah, 5 stars. Loved this. So glad I got to it this weekend. And if you've read it, let me know what you think about it. If you had a problem with the style, that whole like one sentence thing, or if you agree that like as you get going, you can overlook that element of the novel. I loved it. Yeah, let me know what you think if you read this, or are you going to read it? Bye.